I was reading the Clarion Ledger by Paige McCormick. The title reads, Housing Vouchers Keeps Mississippi Families Together. A Reduced Number of Children Entering Foster Care. And I love this article. I wanted to read a couple excerpts from it. It says that there are reasons for removal, such as parental neglect, abuse, and drug use. But for those families whose only issue is inadequate housing, the trauma suffered by the children isn't worth the emotional cost. And I love this because, yes, you have 4 kids, but you don't have enough beds. You have X amount of kids, but you don't have enough rooms. That is inadequate housing. And once you are investigated by the city, state, or government, and you don't have the housing, that could be a big problem. You will not get your kids back until you fix the housing. And that is based on who exactly? And what does the parent do for a living? I mean, if they got X amount of kids and they have a 2-bedroom house, how are they going to do that? Right? And so these are issues where neglect falls under, but it's really more of a financial issue and not an abuse issue, but the person still can't get their kids back. Has nothing to really do with their parenting. It just has to do with their lack of funds. Then it says, this is for families whom the lack of adequate housing is primary factor in removing children from the parents. Youth aged 18 to 24 have exited foster care and are homeless or at risk of homelessness. Yes, the emotional cost is not just the emotional cost here. It's also the trauma that's there too, right? Because now you're in foster care because of homelessness. And the issue is that when those kids age out, are they going to be more susceptible to homelessness? Absolutely. And so then we have a cycle of homelessness. We put them in foster care because their parent doesn't have adequate housing. And now they're in the system about to age out with inadequate housing again. So we have to do a better job there, right? As I was reading the article, it talks about the money. There's also a monetary cost for Mississippi. It is estimated that when one child is separated from their family and placed in foster care, it costs Mississippi $40,000 annually. Mississippi has more than 3,800 children in its foster care system today. Do the math and you can see the cost is astronomical. So yes, it's already costing the state a lot of money. And I always talk about this because some people say, well, we don't talk about the numbers. Don't talk about your emotions. You're right. $40,000. That's just that has to be an estimate, because I'm thinking to myself, not only is it $40,000 for one child, imagine all the services that child uses. We're talking about the overtime for the foster care. We're talking about the services that are being used and overwhelmed by the children that are in foster care. Right? And so for me, I just would like to see this in other states. I would love to see HUD get more involved in foster care and really have these vouchers in place consistently. Right? No, not just for a year, and then they got to go back to the state senate and the state house and get it renewed. I'm talking about, let's make that permanent, right? You are trying to save money as it relates to a state balanced budget. I mean, you're paying money either way. I think this is the best way to spend that money until otherwise shown, and then, come back to the table as far as financially how to handle this issue. I believe that a lot of states and cities have to really think about the property that they have in the books. And if you ever go on a lot of land and abandoned buildings that the city or state own, it's unbelievable. I mean, these houses and this land can be used to house foster children and to help families with adequate housing, especially if they already have a house, but it's just not big enough. Okay, so they're already paying one thing. They can pay it someone else. And as long as it meets the adequate housing, we don't have to remove we don't have to remove children, right? That costs the government more money. That's costing kids emotional costs that you can never measure anyway. And broken families impacts the finances. Broken families impact all different type of things. We're talking about crime. We're talking about more susceptible to homelessness, more susceptible to violence, right? All of those things, when the human is impacted and they're reactionary, their reactions are not in the best interest, especially when it becomes illegal, services are used. Okay? And then it talks about the question of neglect again. We have to reform the what is on the books as it relates to neglect, as far as it relates to housing, right? Does someone not having enough house makes them a bad parent? Because we have to do a better job. We can't be removing kids, or those kids can't go back until this person has a 6-bedroom house because they have X amount of kids. That is unfair, and it doesn't even make sense. And it's costing the state and the taxpayer money, right? We don't want to do that. So we're losing both on the emotional costs, we're losing on the family costs, and then we're losing money, right? And for what? And then this last point, poverty shouldn't bring punishment. Over and over again throughout my tenure of listening to different people who are at these valleys, social workers, who talk about the lack of funds, the lack of resources, the lack of money. People are being penalized for being poor. You cannot do that. Right? Nowhere in our Constitution says you can't have kids because of you being in poverty. The state should not just keep acting on these people. They have to help the people. The state is supposed to be a helper, not a punisher. Right? And this is where we're talking about human services. This is not incarceration. Right? This is not jail. We are helping people fix families. We are helping people with their broken families, okay? And so I'm just grateful for this article. I love the idea that HUD is giving out vouchers. I just believe that more states should follow the same. I believe that states and cities with their abandoned properties and their extra land resources, there's something that can be done there when we can actually help the people. Now, I know there's a lot of red tape as it relates to permits, as it relates to getting these houses childproof and getting them licensed. But that's something that we could be working on, right? And then last but not least, just making sure once again that we're not punishing people because they're lack of. That's what the state is there for. We're helping people to get off the books. We're helping them get to where they need to get to so we can get out of their lives, especially as it relates to family. You can debate all them other things, but we're just talking about family issues and getting children back with their families, and so that the state can be focused on massive problems that they can fix. My name is Ambition Harper. Thank you.